Hello friends, it's Chari. Today I have a fun spring card to share that mixes and matches new and old stamps and dies, including the new I Love You Mower mini set. This set has coordinating dies and coloring stencils. This set has that cute little mouse that is mowing the grass and a really punny sentiment that we're going to add to our card today. I am going to pair this cute little guy with an older stamp set. So I pulled out Gnome Sweet Gnome, and I am using the pink flamingo. The flamingo that is the lawn ornament, but I think that this cute little mouse will look adorable with any of these because they're kind of oversized, so it's like he's mowing around the giant bird bath or the garden gnome. But today I'm using the plastic flamingo. And I am stamping all my images in jet black ink so that I can do some coloring with my Copic markers for the flamingo. And then I'm actually going to use the coloring stencils for the little mouse and his lawnmower. What's really fun about coloring stencils is that you can easily mix them with colored images with markers, and I'm going to show you that today. So for the little strip of grass, of course we have to use freshly cut grass ink. I mean, it's in the name. So I am just coloring that with my little blending brush. For the mouse, I'm using manatee ink for his body. And I'm starting out pretty light, and then I'm adding a bit more to make him a little bit darker. For the inside of his ear and his nose, I'm using some Peachy Keen ink. And then I decided to add a little more shading by adding some marker shading right under his hat and at the bottom of his body. This is the T3 and it matches that manatee ink pretty good. For his belly, I'm just using whatever ink is left over on that same gray brush that I used for his body. And for his hat, I pulled out sunflower ink and went all over with that color. And then I pulled out #2 pencil and just pulled that ink from the outside edge towards the middle so it looked like his hat was round in shape. Now for my flamingo, this is an older set, so of course I don't have coloring stencils, but that's okay because we're going to color him with a marker. And I don't think I have ever used this pink marker. When I pulled it out, I mean, hot pink is how I would describe this. Actually, it's called shock pink, and it was rather shocking when I colored it onto the cardstock. I don't even think that this video footage gives that pink justice because it was so bright, but perfect for a plastic pink flamingo lawn ornament. So I blended out that really hot pink with a lighter pink. Now I'm adding that hot pink back in a little bit. And what I'm actually going to do is grab an even darker one and just barely outline the belly and the bottom of my pink flamingo. But this pink is perfect for this guy because it is so bright. So let me grab that darker marker and I'm just going to actually just draw a dark line right along the bottom. I'm not even going to blend that out. I'm going to use it to highlight those little feather lines as well. And that just gives it a nice dark shading. Now I did Google pink flamingos or plastic flamingos to make sure I was right, but their beaks are black, so I'm using a dark gray for that. Now back to my coloring stencils. I colored the flamingo first so that I could decide what color I wanted the mower to be. And I decided that if he's got this bright pink flamingo in his yard, he needs a fancy mower. So I used some merman ink to color the mower. And now I'm using narwhal ink to color in the wheels and the other accent pieces using the coloring stencils. And now he has a fancy aqua colored mower. Then I'm using the coordinating dies to cut out all of my images. And I will just set those aside while I work on my little scene. Now I'm using a smaller stitch rectangle to cut a panel, and this is where my little scene is going to go, and I'm going to do some ink blending. While I was cutting that white cardstock, I also cut a sentiment banner that we're going to use in a little bit. And I have a piece of Bitsy Blooms paper. This is that pink kind of hatching, and I cut that with the largest outside in stitched rectangle. So that's going to be the border around my little scene panel. Now to create my little scene, I am going to do some ink blending on this panel. So I've just put a little bit of removable adhesive on the back so I can stick it to my glass surface. I'm using my sentiment banner as a guide to figure out where I want to mask off my grass line. Now, normally we grab that fun grass stencil to create a grass line, but our little mouse is cutting the grass, so we don't want that grassy stencil. I want a nice straight line where he's already cut. So I've got my freshly cut grass ink and I am just ink blending below that tape to create a nice crisp straight line. Then I can take my tape off and move it down to where I'm masking off that green now. And I'm going to use Moonstone ink to create a very light cloudy sky. So I will pull out my cloudy stencil and just add that Moonstone ink starting at the top, pulling it off the stencil onto the paper to create those fun puffy clouds. Then I will just move my stencil down, turn it so I get a different cloud formation, and then I will repeat that same process, working my way down to my grass line. I only did 3 lines of clouds, and then when I got to the bottom, I just filled in below that last puffy cloud line all the way down to the grass, just to make sure that it's not too bright white right above the grass. Now I did have a white line between my blue and my green, but I wasn't too concerned about it because I am going to cover it up with all those cute little images and you didn't really see it too much. But I should have moved my tape down just slightly. I am going to use the Spring Showers die set to cut out a couple little clouds and a sunshine. Now I did not actually end up using the clouds, but I am going to use that sunshine that's cut from that yellow watercolor wishes paper. Obviously I use it for sunshines a lot. But I did feel like my sunshine needed a little face to add some excitement to him, so I pulled out the All the Smiles stamp set, and I'm going to use that one with the sunglasses. It fits the sunshine perfect, and I think the sunglasses go perfect with the sun as well. So I'm adding some cool shades to my sun, and while I have my black ink out, I am going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment. This is I Love You Mower every day. So I have this sentiment banner I cut earlier, and I'm just stamping this towards the left. I'm going to grab that same sentiment banner die that I used to cut it out and just line it back up so that I can make myself a shorter banner. This is going to fit my sentiment perfect, so I'll just hold it in place with some low tack tape, and that will just die cut the other end of the banner, and now I have one that fits my sentiment perfectly. I've added some foam squares to the back of my sentiment banner. I'm actually adding some dots of liquid glue as well because I know that there is still kind of wet ink where I added that green ink, and this will just hold my sentiment banner in place on that wet ink. For my flamingo, I want his little tail to kind of hang over the edge, and then I'm going to cover up the bottom of his feet with the grass that has not been cut just yet. Then of course for my little mouse, I'm going to go ahead and put a little dot of glue so that he can be pushing the mower and this will all act as one piece. And I'm going to pop this up with some foam squares. So I'll just add a few foam squares and put him right there like he is mowing the grass around that big plastic flamingo lawn ornament. Now, you might ask why I'm adding all these pieces before I put this on my card, and there's a reason for that. I want to stamp my little grass all around. So there are stamps in this stamp set that are little pieces of grass flying everywhere when you mow the grass, and of course we're going to stamp those in some freshly cut grass ink. So there are 2. This one has a lot of little pieces, and then there is a stamp with 3 little pieces. And then I started stamping some down in my inked grass, which gave it some texture, and I liked the look of that. So I added a few of those around. I'm actually going to add a couple here below my grass line. And then I'm going to add the sun to the top left corner. Now, I have my little clouds there, and as I said before, I did not actually end up using them. I couldn't figure out where I wanted them to go. I decided to go ahead and put the panel onto the card, and then I would look at the clouds again. So I am adding some adhesive to the back of my pattern paper. I'm putting this on a craft card base, so I have that craft color around the outside edge. Then I can add my whole panel to the background. I probably could have added this before I stamped, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to pop it up or not. And now I'm back to deciding if I want the clouds. I did end up just leaving them off. I felt like they kind of blended with my background a little too much. I'm back to my little pieces of grass. I thought it would be fun for the grass to be flinging off the edge of my canvas or my little scene. And then there is a tiny little heart in this set. I know I always add little die cuts hearts to my projects, but today I'm stamping some little guava hearts. So I'm just stamping these around, and now I'm glad I didn't add those clouds because I like the little hearts above my flamingo. Now there is a stencil for this little heart in the stencils, and so I'm just going to fill those in with that same guava ink that I stamped them with. Now over here at my little mouse, since he's popped up, I'm just making sure I hold that stencil down flat with my finger while I add that stenciling, and it worked perfectly. And of course, we need to add some glitter. So some glitter accents on his fancy mower, on his hat, and then I'm adding some glitter accents to the flamingo because I think it makes it look like it's shimmering in the sun. I also added some to the grass below the flamingo as well. So here is my finished card with I Love You Mower combined with Gnome Sweet Gnome and that bright pink flamingo, which I also think it would be super cute with the bird bath or the gnome, and of course that bright sunshine with the cool shades. Thank you so much for watching today. Have an amazing day. Bye.